You or your band has spent countless hours working on new music, then you release the song online and it's like nothing ever happened. No traction, no interest. And then you're wondering why the results didn't match all the energy that you've put in the project. Not only you wasted all your time, but you also wasted a lot of money. It's really hard to navigate the music industry. That's why today I'm going to show you the 5 rules to releasing music in 2024 to make sure that the next time you release a song, the results match your expectations. Let's get going. In this video, I'll explain all the key points to make sure that your next release is a successful one. Following these 5 simple rules are going to multiply the chances of you succeeding by releasing your new material. This means be more efficient with time and money, much more chances of captivating your audience, and also make sure that you're going to grow your fan base for the longevity of your band. Although we are working in the most saturated market ever where everyone is fighting for people's attention through all the noise, we now have means at the tip of our fingers to promote ourselves and to make sure that we can create material with almost no means. Back then, bands had to pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to record an album and then a music video to promote themselves. So now we have incredible ways to do the same with almost no investment. The first rule to release music successfully is to make sure that your song is compelling. And the key to that is to have the proper arrangements. Just like these TV shows where you have big cliffhanger right at the end of the episode, you want to make sure that your listeners stay engaged until the end of your song and keep coming back for more. The best way to do that is to make sure that there's no weak link in your songs, no boring moment, and as the song evolves, there should always be fresh elements, contrasts, dynamics, and elements of surprise. When you're working on music, you have to think as a creator, not just a consumer. And the best way to try to understand how to work good arrangement is to analyze your favorite songs from your favorite artists. That way, you can create a map of the arrangement and try to understand why you have such an impactful emotional connection with that song. And that way, it can give you a roadmap for your own songs. By doing this process, you'll understand better what makes the song's arrangement shine, and this will give you the ingredients to create your own recipes. Just as in life, music is a constant cycle of tension and release. And to make sure that your song have the most emotional impact on the listeners, your songs should have dynamics and contrasts. And if you want to know more about creating impact, excitement, and contrast in your song, this video talks all about it. You can work songs by working a patchwork of ideas, but the best way to make sure that you have a coherent story is to make sure that each part works within a context and has a specific goal in terms of emotional impact. For example, a pre-chorus that's building tension up to a release, which would be a hook with more melody, for example. That same hook for a chorus would be much less impactful without this pre-chorus leading up to it. So from a songwriting and composing standpoint, you would really benefit from seeing a song as a story that unfolds rather than a patchwork. The whole is much more than the sum of its parts. There's no ideal length for a song, but if you go back historically, in the 40s and 50s, songs used to be much shorter. They had some restrictions with technology back then, but nowadays our restriction is the fact that people's attention span is so short that you have to consider that when you're working on a song. You may not be writing music solely for TikTok, but you have to understand that the first 20 seconds or so of a song are critical for retention of your audience, especially if they're on Spotify or services like this where they can simply skip with a touch of a button. There is no set rule, but depending on the genre of music you're working on, I would say that between 2 minutes and a half to 4 minutes and a half is a good ballpark idea for the length of a song. In my opinion, it's always better to have shorter, more action-packed songs with no weak link than working on longer, repetitive songs, which in the end can become a bit boring. So don't be afraid to leave the listener hungry for more. That way, they're gonna come back, listen to it again, and develop more familiarity with your music, and this will create a bond between the listener and you as an artist. Your song is only going to be as good as its weakest link, so make sure that you don't leave any stone unturned in the pre-production process. That way you're going to make sure that the listener is not going to skip to the next song. To have the most emotional impact in your songs regarding lyrics, the best way is to have a story to tell, something authentic to you. A good example to illustrate that would be the troubled childhood of Jonathan Davis. He used that to his advantage to really create a compelling story, and the emotion comes across in a very strong way to the listener because it's something he's lived through. So if you're writing lyrics for your own music, I highly recommend that you speak from the heart and that you're authentic to your own life, to your own story. One last thing regarding arrangements is make sure that you don't reveal all the cards that you have in your hand right away. Maybe you have an idea that can develop to something else later in the song, but you don't show it right when the song starts. You prepare the listener for that idea, maybe in a simpler version, because songs should always build up. There should always be something new, something fresh that comes to keep the listener engaged and make sure that the story unfolds gradually. And this concept not only applies for music, but also for lyrics. For example, in the song The Day I Tried to Live from Soundgarden, the last two lines that Chris Cornell sings completely change the meaning and the understanding of the song. So it's like a missing piece of the puzzle that's only being discovered at the end of the song, which makes the songwriting very clever in that specific case. Another example of keeping things fresh is, for example, on verse number 2 of your song, then you could add a little melody on top of your verse that you don't use in the first verse, although it would sound good in the first verse. So you don't use everything at once and you keep some tools in your toolbox for later down the road. The second rule to releasing successful music in 2024 is to make sure that each song that you put out has something memorable, something somehow catchy that sticks in your head. I can't tell you how many times I've been on tour, and even after 30 days straight touring with the same band and listening to them every single night, I can't remember a single part they've played. Working on a hook doesn't mean it has to be corny or cheesy. It can be something extremely heavy and still be a hook. It's not about writing commercial music, it's about finding something that can stick in one's head. Having a strong hook guarantees that the song will have its own signature, its own identity, and it also makes it so easy to recall as soon as you hear the song title. For example, the song Black Hole Sun from Soundgarden again. It's very easy to remember the melody as soon as you hear the title of the song. The third rule to releasing successful music in 2024 is to make sure that you put the emphasis on the right things. Number one, how the song makes you feel. That should be the priority. If it doesn't make you feel like anything, maybe there's something wrong going on. If you're working many hours and making changes on the song, how are these changes impacting the way it makes you feel about that song? You can spend 10 hours working on a kick drum sound when you're mixing. Is it really going to change the way you feel about that song? That should always be kept in perspective. Working on music is very demanding and absorbing to artists, but we have to keep a certain proportion in how much time we spend on certain things and the results we're getting from this time invested. So this is an important part of staying efficient in the process of working on the music itself. The fourth rule to successfully releasing music in 2024 is to make sure that you have a release plan for your music. I know that working on music by itself can basically drain all your energy, but it's not sufficient to only have the music ready. You had to have some kind of plan to put it out there. Also, many musicians and artists are introverts and they don't want to waste their time on social media to try to promote themselves. Unfortunately, now it's the name of the game, it's part of your job, so you should allocate a certain part of your time to this. So you're gonna have to work on some kind of strategy, work on posting more regularly so that when the time of the release comes, the algorithm can favor the spread of the news and make sure that people know about your actual release. For example, you can start posting reels about the recording process, the behind the scenes. You can do lives on Instagram to have fans ask you questions. So you have to work on something so that when it's time for the release, there's some interest and some buzz about the music. Algorithms from all social media platforms need you to be consistent with your feed. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to start posting things prior to the release. Otherwise, your news will not reach anyone and nobody will know that you have a new song that's out there. The thing is, you're gonna have to post about stuff that's not only regarding your music. You're gonna have to post about funny stuff, about memes, whatever helps you increase your reach for when it's time for the actual release. You have to have at least 1 month between the time you're done with your final product and the time of the actual release. And that way you can file a form with Spotify with a release plan, and this will help you get into playlists. You can even conduct polls on social media to involve your audience in the plan for the release and the strategy. The fifth rule to have a successful release in 2024 is to make sure that you have something with visuals at the same time you release your audio, because unfortunately audio nowadays is not enough. So you're gonna have to work on some kind of visualizer video, a performance video, a storyline video, something else than just the music. And your visuals are gonna have to be up to par with your music. So don't release a good song with a crappy music video, because this will influence the overall perspective of what people think of your music. If you're on a very tight budget, maybe you can consider only working on a visualizer video with lyrics and things like that. But people will eventually need to see your face. So it's always better to work on the performance or storyline video or something combined to make sure that the fans can put images to the music. That will also help build a sense of identity for your band and will be able to immerse the listener a little bit more in the band's world, which ultimately is the way to go. Adding images to the music will also build a stronger emotional connection between the listener and your band. Art is subjective, so your lyrics can be interpreted in different ways by the listener, and working on a music video could create a whole new meaning to the way the listener initially interpreted your lyrics. So to sum things up, make sure you spend a good amount of time optimizing your song's arrangements, working strong hooks, keeping perspective over the material, and make sure you're using your time wisely to make the changes needed. Make sure that you have solid visuals to match your music, and finally work on a solid release plan for your music. If you have any question regarding your next release, ask me in the comments below and I'll answer them in a future video. I hope that you like the content. Please click like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. See you again very soon.